not a guys. I was in Monaco for a race, and this was like my first time ever going to track meet overseas. And when I got over there, like I'm used to seeing maybe a track meet maybe about 15 to 2,000 people. Dude, like when I got to the back stretch, going and walking into the stadium, it was over like 10 to 15,000 people just on the back stretch of the stadium. Like in the stadium. That's not including both sides or the other side. So for me, I was the type of athlete that it kind of hyped me up, knowing that there's a lot of people there, kind of pumped me up, and I got goosebumps, but very excited. So I'm pretty sure with a lot of players, they feel the crowd, it hypes them up, and some players don't. And I think, that is why some of these playoffs that we've seen, maybe that's why we've seen teams blow it through one lead. Maybe that's why some of these series went longer than they needed to. So I think if Adam Silver can get it being back into the arena, that's what he would really want to do, because that's the point of having that home court advantage. Even though, like I said, we did see the Nuggets come back to the Clippers, and it's not an excuse or anything, but I just don't see the Clippers losing 2 times back-to-back in LA to the Nuggets. So for me, especially in the Game 7. So I think I'm pretty sure every player, every coach, every organization would love to be back on their home court.
Yeah, I think I think the NBA will probably have everybody in their home arenas next year, probably, with limited crowds and whatnot. Everybody spaced out, like we kind of seen with the NFL and college football. So, push come to shove, I think they can come back and do something like this, but I don't think they will do this again, especially the players, because, we see some of these stories that some of these players having depression and stuff like that while being in this bubble. And we got, NBA got to figure out, how to, plan a core for next season. Okay. You're getting these guys back into their natural settings. Some of these places are, kind of, you probably agree with this, like mildly open or moderate open, not fully on the way, but, kind of halfway there, depending on what state you're in. So it's just like, I use the Tennessee Titans, for example. I got a friend of mine who lives up in Nashville. He told me, with all the cases up there, some of those dudes were still kicking it. They were still
just hanging.
They were still kicking it. Put Isaiah Wilson to the side because, he was his own special case, but most of the other guys were kicking it.
Yeah.
And that's why they had a hard time beating it, because they were still kicking it. And they knew what was the situation in tow. Now with these NBA players, coming back home, getting readjusted and stuff like that, are you going to have seen those situations like you see in the NFL, especially like the Titans, New England and stuff like that? Are these dudes going to, chill at home and kind of know what the circumstances are and the situation and the stakes,
Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts on that? Like, can these dudes coming to next season do what they're supposed to do, stay at home best they can, and do better for the better good for everybody?
I think that it's going to be hard, but knowing what they just experienced, I don't doubt that they will be able to. The reason why is because you just were in a bubble for almost a month and a half or somewhere around there. And a lot of them were itching to go home. To be honest, was so bad that you could see how some of the teams were playing. They were ready to go home. So even the fact that the playoffs, it seemed like some teams were just already checked out. Before the playoffs even got started. So they played a couple games and they were ready just to get back. And even some were already going on vacation while the playoffs were going on when they team would leave. So I don't think that it would be an issue with them acting right when they're home, because they know what the results can be if they don't, right? You know that, okay, well, we can go back to in a scenario where it's quarantine, or all these other procedures got to happen when one person tests positive, or somebody is close to catching it. Like we see it in college football, hell, we see it in NFL, those other places. Baseball is actually doing really good with it right now as well. But we're seeing, oh well, hey, Cam Newton of the New England Patriots test positive, so now the game is in question, right? Those are the things that you don't want to hear. And with basketball is what a game is happening every almost for a team, damn it, every couple of days, 2 games in 3 days, basically, with a full season. So to be getting popped in or being tested positive, that can hurt a lot of stuff. So I don't think it'll be an issue, with them acting right when they're home, because it can cause a whole lot of different things that they don't want to experience.
Yeah, and we'll see how the NBA proceeds, with testing and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure it'd be the same. You saying the same methods they did with the bubble, but like you mentioned, if these guys going out and kick it and they get the COVID, and it's not like the NFL, well, you can get expansion or practice squad players and you can rotate guys in and out.
Right.
With the NBA, I mean, your max roster spots are 15 players. Are you going to expand on those rosters, or are you going to evaluate those things? If, say, for example, Lou Williams tests positive, I had to use his name, and then him and a couple of players, who were with him had to test as well, you're in a bad situation. And God knows who those players been around, whatnot, and you just go from there. Like at my job right now, we at least have by close to 10 people that have tested positive for the coronavirus. And there's kind of rumors that they might shut the store down. And you got those people around folks, all that stuff. The county I live in, it's a hotbed right now. And you got some people wearing masks. You got a lot of other folks not wearing masks and whatnot. I'm not saying masks are invisible, will defeat this thing, but it'll help curb it. And everybody's not doing their part, and especially these players that are worth millions of dollars to these teams, you got to look at the optics here. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff that you have to definitely check out, because that's not something that you want to experience for a long period of time. Like you said, a person get tested positive and it's like a whole place, wherever they were, wherever they touched it, whoever they were around. Now it's in question, everything has to get shut down, right? And in the beginning, for the most part, it was okay. Well, they have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. A lot of these sports right now, they're kind of like breaking that rule so they can get back to playing sports. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, and I don't think that'll be the way they go, for long. And we just seen, and I've seen about Nick Saban. It was only a day after Nick Saban tested positive that he took like 2 or 3 more tests and found out it was negative. So these are the things that's going on, and why even put yourself in risk of that? Why even put the the sport. Why put NBA in jeopardy when clearly, if this is something that's still going on, it's something important. Why not just take care of it when you can instead of just, like you said, just hanging out, just going, doing whatever. Next thing you know, a cough here, a cough there, you can't take something. It's, oh, well, dang, I just test positive. Where did I get it from? So now you got to trace back. Everybody was around you. Like it can turn into a mess. And it's to the point now where, like I said, is the Lakers play the Clippers and somebody for the Clippers get it, like you said, Lou Williams. Now the whole Lakers staff and the Lakers players got to be quarantined. So it's like you don't want to risk that.
I definitely agree with you there. And, I think that's the perfect segue to the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And it's as we move past the bubble. The Clippers, ladies and gentlemen, has a new head coach. His name is Ty Lue. He was assistant under Doc Rivers for the Clippers. Doc Rivers has been let go and is now the head coach of Philly. Now he's in the fold for the Clippers. He has brought along Chauncey Billups, who I think is going to be a great hire. And by the way, I'm kind of surprised Chauncey has not gone to coaching sooner than he has. A little surprised about that. I envision him as a college basketball coach, but I'm surprised he never got into this sooner. That's my take.
Well, I think that the reason why I think a lot of times, and you can give me your responses because you're coaching now, is maybe he was looking for the right spot. I'm pretty sure he's Chauncey Billups. He won the NBA Finals, so I'm pretty sure he was getting calls. He knows the knowledge of basketball, but maybe he was looking for the right time and the right spot to be in. He's an assistant coach right now at the Clippers now, right?
Yeah.
So I would think that him being an assistant coach right now, that's not going to be the end of it. I think that he is going to start there. That's going to be, where he begins. But at some point, he's going to be a head coach somewhere. That's the trend of being an assistant coach, and we see that often. So I wouldn't doubt that this is just where he starts and then starts to trend to the fact, okay, well, now we're going at an assistant coaching job or whatever, because I'm pretty sure the Nets probably thought about they probably brought his name up, but with Kyrie and Kevin Durant already having the guy that they prefer, they had to shoe in for him to grab Steve Nash. So it probably was just more so of when, like, okay, well, now I'm actually, this is when I'm kind of ready to go, but also these different scenarios, situations come up. You're going to a team with Doc Rivers and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George at the moment. So you have a lot of players right there. And the success that he brings there is only going to build his resume.
Yeah, and, for Chauncey, we'll get to Ty Lue here in a second. For Chauncey, I do see him as a head coach. Will be in the NBA. Time will tell. You mentioned, a place like Brooklyn, why he wasn't contacted there. Maybe he was. Or more like you mentioned, maybe they always had an eye for Steve Nash. But, will Chauncey be in better fit than Steve? We shall see. If I had to grab a studio guy who hasn't coached an NBA game yet to be a head coach, Chauncey Billups would be one of the first people I'm grabbing. He's one of the first people I'm grabbing. I remember reading a story about him on ESPN.com years ago, and how when he came to the league, he kind of somewhat earned a bad rep being a bad teammate or something like that, because he bounced around so much around early in his career up until he got to Minnesota, and those guys in Minnesota thought he was a bad teammate because he bounced around a lot. But after the case, it wasn't. It was just he was just in the wrong spot, wrong times, and all that stuff. And then, got to Minnesota, turned his career around. And then, the rest is history. But Ty Lue, he's bringing a good staff in. Billups, Larry Drew into the fold as well. So you got those guys in the fold, guys that you trust. And, we'll see what the Clippers do personnel-wise, who they change in and out. But I like the moves that Ty Lue has had.
Yeah. I mean, Ty Lue has that history of being making the solid moves for his teams. I think the reason why he really let him go in Cleveland is because they just feel like the era with him and LeBron just was over. Once LeBron left, that era was basically done for. So I don't think he's a bad coach at all. In fact, I think he's the better coach for the Clippers because, as we can see, what the Clippers were doing, it seemed like it was more of it was a player's team more than a coach's team. It seemed like Doc Rivers was just one of the guys, right? I don't think they respect him as much as they should, for a coach. So, for me, Ty Lue is going to get, he's going to get in their face. He's going to talk to them. He's going to require things. I'm pretty sure you heard that story about the fact that, Kawhi was being late to get on the plane, just showing, kind of going, as we see him play the games that he wants to from time to time, and some of the players had a problem with it. I don't think that happens with Ty Lue. I think he's going to make sure they're all on the same page. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, but I think he's the guy for them. Now he's worked with one of the greatest of all time in LeBron. So, I think he can ride the ship.
Let me ask you this, and I kind of teased you with this a few days ago. Is Ty Lue like I don't know how can I phrase this, like, is he top tier head coaching material to you? Like these teams don't really, they talk to him about coaching jobs, but he's not the first choice. And it seems like the jobs that he has gotten was after the previous head coach was kind of showing the door after disagreements with their star players. Why he's not that first choice in a sense, like, if these guys prefer this man here, why are they going another way here?
Well, I think it's more so because of the other coaches that are out there. I think that plays a huge part because you do have other options out there. Usually you see like D'Antoni's out there, Doc Rivers was out there for a minute. So, a couple of these other coaches, they may look at, because they're, older and they have a little bit more experience, to whereas you look at Ty Lue and him being with the Cavs, you're thinking, well, hell, he would just, LeBron took them to the championship, but not Ty Lue. But, that's from, we haven't seen the behind the scenes work that they do. I remember him and Ty Lue and LeBron going at it at one point. And we're not talking about just, some player just got drafted or a rookie. We're talking about LeBron, greatest of all time. He was John with him on the court, on the side, on the bench. So, he's a person that's demanding respect, right? But people don't see that at first. Anywhere LeBron go, the first thing they're thinking is, oh, well, he's the one that led to them this title. If you think about it, it's the same thing with Spoelstra. People really didn't give Spoelstra that big time credit like that because of the squad that he had. They thought about him as a pretty good coach, but they said, people believe that LeBron led the charge. So it's the same thing with Frank Vogel right now. You're going to look at the fact that LeBron and AD was the lead in charge of this team. So who's going to get overlooked is the coach. And I think that's what happened with Ty Lue. But I think that, now he's in a similar position where he was in Cleveland. He has a pretty solid roster, very pretty solid roster. If he can get a lot of those guys, a couple of those guys to come back. I think Beverly is a free agent, right?
No, I think he's still there for a couple of years.
Okay. Somebody is there. It's not Trez. Is it Trez? Actually, it is Trez. Yeah. So, get you this group to come back. Put some pieces together and put some stuff together. I think that'll, let other teams know, what they're missing out on as far as him, not being their coach. So also, I think, like I said, I think this is a chance for Billups to sit and learn under Lue, because he's already been here before.
I think, for Ty Lue, it's great that you got the 5-year deal, and it's a lot of pressure taking this job as well, because, if you're not winning the finals, or at least getting to the finals, then I don't know, you'll be around, maybe. And God knows what this team will look like the year after that season, with player options to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But, I mean, you got to come in and hit the ground running. And, you brought up the Kawhi thing about guys, not happy about the treatment he get and stuff like that. He got to sit quiet and was like, hey, man, I know some games, you can take off here and there, maybe against, against like the Kings or the Knicks or something like that. But I'm going to need you if we're going to compete, man. And that's one thing you got to sell to him. Now, maybe he's the right guy to maybe get Paul George, his mind right, and and get him committed. Because I don't think Lawrence Frank and Steve Ballmer are not. They're not going to trade away Paul George. They spent too much capital on him to not just turn around the next year and send him off elsewhere to appease him.
Yeah, no. I think we talked about that in the past. Is you have to give up a lot. You have to get a lot for him in order to get what you're worth for, what you've traded him for.
So Ty Lue got to figure out a lot of things. Now, I don't know if he was in a running for like Chicago or New Orleans. I know he interviewed for Philly. New Orleans still doesn't have a coach yet. So that's one thing I thought, one situation you kind of could look at for. Houston doesn't have a coach yet. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. But, maybe, he felt comfortable in that situation enough to take the job, and maybe he can fix the situation. So, time will tell on that. What are your final thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that he's going to do a hell of a job there. But remember, we were talking about, we were seeing Ty Lue in the East with the Cavs, right? With LeBron. This is not the East. So you're not going to go through a conference that doesn't have a lot of competition. This one is very deep, starting with the NBA final champions, NBA champions, and the Lakers. So they got to put a lot of work in. But I do think that he's the right guy for it. But I wouldn't be surprised if, him and Kawhi were on different pages early. Just because of the fact that we know Kawhi likes to play only when he wants, which can cause issue.
Yeah, so that's something to look out for, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll, want to see y'all thoughts on this. Like, is Ty Lue the right guy for the Clipper job? Should have been somebody else. Or maybe Ty Lue should have looked elsewhere. instead of like being the cleaner for his last, well, this job in the Cleveland job. We'll see. Now, speaking of coaching jobs, D-Lock, and front office, positions, the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets going to look a lot different in their front office space. Daryl Morey has stepped down from that position as team president or general manager. Daryl Morey has been there for at least a decade and change. Guy that, one of those hires of those, those analytic guys that some of these NBA teams use. And, with him, it came with great success. If you look at one side of the aisle, Daryl Morey was pretty good at it. The other side, a guy like Sam Hinkie trying to apply the same thing. And his results has, look good later on now. But with Morey, he hit the ground running and did a very solid job with this team. I think you and me can agree that his biggest move was getting James Harden.
Yeah.
And, when he did that move, transformed Houston into a perennial contender. Making the Western Conference Finals a couple times, was like a Chris Paul hamstring away to making the NBA Finals. So what are your thoughts about Morey stepping down, and what's the outlook of the future for this team?
Well, I think it was I don't like how him and D'Antoni went about it. It just seemed like they were just there to make a couple moves. They didn't trust their own moves and just stopped. So you went and got Russ, got James Harden, traded away Capella. It didn't work. So what you did was you just crashed all of it and said, okay, well, hell, I quit. I didn't like that. But also what happens is it's going to make it hard for the next general manager, next coach, because you're dealing with a roster that you haven't really built. And you can't really start from scratch unless you trade away, some people or make a couple moves. That's going to have you not be good for a couple of years. You got Russ and you got James Harden, but what if, the general manager or the coach don't want to have two dominant players like that? What if they want to have a dominant player with a big man or something like that? It's so many questions that was left. That is left for the new general manager and a new coach. That eventually at some point it had to be, done. But I just don't like how it just was like, okay, well, we tried this, and as soon as it didn't work, okay, we just gonna stop. Same thing with Chris Paul. Chris Paul was there. The next thing you know, oh, well, you know what? It didn't work, so let's do this. So for me, I just think it's a little too early, but, it got to the point to where he just said it was done. And now, whoever they bring in, they're going to have that roster, those picks. They have to decide what they want to do. I mean, you had a pretty solid big man at Clint Capella. Not the tallest guy on your team, but 6'7". Size Tyson Chandler.
For Daryl Morey, for me, D-Lock, it's like, I think it was past time for him to go, especially after this bubble, series that happened in Orlando and what happened in Houston. That almost got put out in the first round by OKC. And then you go against the Lakers and you get swept. I'm going to have a gentleman's sweep, excuse me. And it's like, okay, you went small, you play fast, but, you're not winning any championships in that style. If you're gonna play small like that, you gotta have efficiency across the board. And one glaring hole in that lineup is Russell Westbrook. And I think we love Russ as a competitor. He's tough. He don't miss games. But if you're gonna play small like that and play fast, play efficient basketball, shoot at will, but trying to like have a good shooting percentage, he ain't that type of guard. And you kind of wonder if Chris Paul would be better in that situation. Now, granted, yes, he's older, but with his shooting and stuff like that, it kept defenses honest. I mean, when Russ is on, he's on. When he's off, yeah, he may put up a lot of points, but he takes a lot of shots to get there. So, like you mentioned, who the new GM may be, they got to sit and think, well, first, they got to figure out a new head coach. And maybe leaning towards Jeff Van Gundy. So before we move on that, like, what's your thoughts about Jeff Van Gundy maybe getting that job?
I don't think it's a bad idea, but the thing is, again, like if I look at his past coaching, right? He coached it back in 03, 07.
Mm-hmm.
His teams, the teams that he coached with the Knicks as well, he didn't have really that two ball dominant type players like that. I think it would be a pretty solid move. But again, like I said, the general manager, the coach, these two guys got to go hand in hand. So I think that you hire a coach and then a general manager. I think that's kind of backwards because it's kind of like you're trying to pick you're picking the coach to pick the general manager, but the general manager, I think that's his job to pick the guy that he wants. But I don't think he'll be bad. It's just, again, it's that decision on, okay, do you keep Russ and James Harden or do you get rid of one of them? Because it's clear what Mike D'Antoni was trying to do. We all know that Mike D'Antoni was trying to let Russ dominate half the game and then let James Harden dominate the other. All they would do is have somebody grab boards and then spread the floor. They walk down the court and have everybody around the three-point line or three-point line and drive and either get the and one or get the foul or shoot or dish it out to one of the people at the three-point line. So the offense was pretty simple. It wasn't too much of a problem. Now a little bit the defense was playing pretty solid, but it's just it wasn't working like that. So I don't know if Steve Van Gundy will go for that. And if he, I wouldn't mind. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if Steve Van Gundy or whoever that the next coach is will get rid of one of James Harden or Russ, because they might not be what kind of team identity they want.
Van Gundy is like that old school coach that came through the 90s, like most known for his run the Knicks in the 90s. And then, of course, with his run the Houston Rockets. And the centerpiece of his squads, Houston and New York, was the big man. Having Pat Ewing, then come around in Houston, having Yao Ming, having Tracy McGrady. He always, played that slow style, the half court offense. And, you look at this roster ain't made for that. And, can he come in if he gets the job? Can he come in and maybe inspire to this new style? Or will he kind of like, hey, I need a big man to keep my team honest or kind of slow down the pace? and have Harden, and if I do keep Westbrook, taking more efficient shots in a half court offense. Could you see?
Well, if you were going to go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
But if you were going to a new team, right? You would want your scheme to be the one that you play. You as far as a coach. So adjusting to their scheme will kind of be kind of tough, and that's why I was saying it would be hard for any coach to go there because of the scenario that you're in. To be honest with you, that's probably the most unattractive job out of all of them. And the reason why is simply because you have two players that are ball dominant, and you're kind of stuck with them. Because if you move one, if you keep them, you're kind of like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because if you keep both of them, right, now you got to run an offense that may not fit the suit that you want, or to run a team that may not fit the suit that you want. Or if you trade one of them, or if you let one of them go, now it's like, well, why the hell did you let this person go? What was, did you get what it was worth? So, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see who the general manager is, because trust and believe that general manager is going to find somebody that, they're going to decide what they want to do. Okay, hey, what do you want to do with this roster? Are you okay with it, or do you want to move pieces around? Let's call around. Don't forget now, we do have the draft coming up, so. That's why I don't understand why the Rockets are taking so long, because once you can kind of get some pieces moving as far as getting a coach and a general manager, maybe some of these players could be, up for trade options. But, being a coach coming into a different area or a new, franchise, you will want to at least have your own, way of running things.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure the owner, Tillman Fertitta, values James Harden. I think that's his piece, his main meal ticket. No pun intended, but selling tickets and stuff like that. Who the new general manager is, like, he gonna sit down and it's like, okay, if Tillman tells me not to trade this dude, what can I get for this other guy? If, I bring this other coach in and he wants a certain style, what can I get? And like you mentioned, Houston may be like a tough spot to be in. If you get hired, like, okay, they go to this roster, they don't have any big men. Tyson Chandler, he's like 37, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, he's probably up there between 37 and 38, somewhere around there. But he's not touching the court at all. He's kind of doing what Udonis is doing right now.
So he's up there in age, and who knows if he plays next year. So your real only legit big man, he not might play next year. I don't have the roster in front of me who's a free agent or not, but
I'm gonna pull that up and check.
But I know Derek Rose. I know Eric Gordon has at least a year left or two. I don't know about Covington. PJ Tucker, I think, is a free agent, but he's about 34, 35 as well. So that's another piece right there you got to consider about.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I do see Austin Rivers. They got that David Nwaba guy, being a free agent. But these are a couple guys that I guess they can play a little piece, and they're tied up in so much money as well. But like I said, you put a coach in a position where it's like he has to take a roster. Like, that's going to be kind of tough on anybody. because you're gonna have to make a move that's probably gonna be a big time story, around the NBA. Not on purpose, but it's just the fact that for you to have the team that you want. I mean, we see it in all sports. What happens when a new coach come in or a new general manager? They want their group, right? They want what they can work with. So that's why, like I said, the move with Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni was just like oh, well, we tried this and it didn't work, so we're just going to disappear. Just like that.
And, it'd be real interesting to see what they do Houston-wise. Daryl Morey, he won't leave Houston until the 1st of November. So he's going to help with the coaching search and whatnot. So the new coach will be maybe in before a general manager is hired. So that'd be real interesting to see what transpires in Houston. But before we get out here, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in with us here tonight, here on iSports Radio. Last thing we're going to talk about, and it's been kind of being brought up again in a sense, but D-Lock, I think we shared some info and stuff like that before we got on the air. The WNBA NBA pay comparisons has kind of been brought back up again. I know this is me. I know these ladies deserve a pay raise, but it's kind of hard to justify that pay raise when you just brought in about $62 million in revenue for the season. Compared to the NBA's, I think, was it 9 billion? It's hard to say that. What are your thoughts about the pay raise and trying to like guilt shame the NBA into it as well?
Well, my thing is, if you look at like we talked about it before, we look at some of these comparisons. These comparisons are like so like distance from each other, like the average salaries, the ticket price, the highest paid player. These things are so like on the opposite end of each other. And my thing is, I know they want to blame or talk about the WNBA, but let's get this started. So the WNBA started about 1996, 1995. So they have not been around that long, to be honest. They don't have as many teams as the NBA do. But knowing some of these ticket prices, as far as $17 a ticket for a price to go watch an NBA game, that tells you that revenue is going to be a lot lower than WNBA games. The exposure that the NBA have is a lot higher than the WNBA. One thing I do realize, and I've noticed it over time, is when they talk about the NBA draft, we talk about the NBA draft for months and months. We have projections. We talk about who's going to go where, the lottery, all of these things. When they come to WNBA, they talk about it maybe a month before the WNBA draft. So the exposure, I think, is what's really playing a big role in, the revenue that it gets. These games need to be, talked about more, these different players, these different things, different events that they have need to be talked about more. The fan base needs to be increased, because once the fan base needs to be increased, now the revenue increases. It's with anything that, not just sports, but just with anything in general, any kind of business, right? You have a business that wants to sell a lot of merchandise or, improve their own business. Their merchandise has to sell. So, you have the revenue for the players, which should be very huge, but it can't be if you're not picking up a lot of money. Like right now, the highest paid player, Brittany Griner, $113,000. right? This is the difference between the viewers. 2019, we've seen about 15 million people watch the NBA Finals. In 2018, for the WNBA championship, it was 231,000. That is so far left from what the NBA Finals has. Now, the NBA Finals has the history. The NBA Finals has a lot more history that has been talked about for the longest. All the big name players. We did talk about how Jordan was a huge player in the NBA, but you had him, you had Magic, you had Larry, you had all these different players that reached out all across the world. Well, one big player that the WNBA did have was Lisa Leslie. But the number of big time players that are known across the world, comparison between the WNBA and the NBA is different. And I think that this is where the revenue was affected. Is it's kind of like the WNBA is more so talked about in the country more than anywhere else. But the WNBA, on the other hand, not WNBA. The NBA, on the other hand, is like everywhere in the world, right? We're getting players from different countries all the time, and they have all these different leagues. Luka was one of the best players in his league, in his country, and now he's over here doing his thing in the NBA, right? That plays a huge part in the revenue that it brings, because his country, now they have people from their country that buy jerseys, that buy game tickets, that do all these different things for different players. So I think that plays a huge part, in my opinion. But in order to increase the revenue of these players, which they deserve, like the expansion of fans, the fan base has to be increased. Like that fixes a lot of stuff. You're talking about a revenue of $60 million compared to an NBA revenue of $7.4 billion. Right? So, like I said, a ticket price for WNBA $17, like I said earlier, compared to an NBA ticket price of $89. That's a big difference. And we're not even talking about the jerseys that many people buy for the NBA, and then what they buy for the WNBA. So I think, to be honest, I think it takes all of us, everybody that watches WNBA, to talk about the NBA a little bit more. The more that you talk about something, the more you may reach out to people that other people may not be able to reach out to. And I think that is what is key, because at the end of the day, we want to increase revenue, we want to get these different things. I think there's one full way to go about it, and that's to get as many other fans as you can from all over the world. Once you do that, I think that we have I have a chance to increase revenue. The biggest time that they talk about the WNBA is when? During Olympics. And I know this because it's kind of similar to how they do track. Track is not big in the USA. But if you go overseas to different meets or different countries, it's very huge.
Mm-hmm.
But Olympics is where the WNBA is talked about all over the world. But when WNBA and the men's basketball go to Olympics, this is something that, Argentina, Australia, all these other basketball teams, they're ready, to compete for the gold medal. They're doing this every year. They talk about the historic team that we had, the historic team that the NBA has had. So that is something that is like a history of ours. And that's what makes NBA so huge. And it trickles down because, like I said, other countries pay attention. You have players that come from all over. Yao Ming coming from his country. Paul Gasol coming from his country. All these people coming from different countries to play in the NBA. We do the same thing similar to the WNBA, but also get that exposure in those different countries. Once we do that, I think that is when the WNBA takes that leap. That's something that's really huge, is that fan base. If you're having, the WNBA is having games where they're not filling up stadiums, it's not helping anything at all.
The points I want to make, people bring up this pay comparison and stuff like that, and you see that from the female side of things, like, yeah, these ladies deserve more and stuff like that, blah, 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 blah. but these same ladies don't go sport these ladies. Like a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, you know, play basketball, loves basketball, but she loves Carmelo Anthony. Like, has bought his jerseys from, has all his jerseys and stuff like that. And I never see her tweet anything about WNBA.
Right.
I'm not saying she don't watch it and stuff like that, but if she had to choose,
it's not being promoted. Yeah.
If she had to choose, who was she gonna go with? She's gonna go to the NBA.
Right.
And her living in Dallas, they have a WNBA team there. I don't think I never seen a photo of her there at a Dallas Wings game. And that's, during the summertime, if you're not busy doing something in the summer, that's a place you can go cheap at. I'm pretty sure WNBA tickets ain't that expensive. So, what can this league do? I think this league could have promoted their players better, or took the ones that were promoted very well in college and marketed them better.
Right.
You mentioned, like, when they first started, that first wave of WNBA players, like Lisa Leslie, the Houston trio,
Candace Parker. Yeah.
Rebecca Lobo. Who else I'm missing? Teresa Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Those first wave of ladies right there. Then the second wave of group, the ladies like Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Swin Cash, those UConn ladies, Candace Parker. Who else I'm missing?
Yeah.
I'm missing somebody else. Those ladies, and you had your own organic stars that, came through the ranks, like a Becky Hammond. You didn't really market, you didn't promote those ladies well enough and take them serious enough, to kind of put them over the hump.
Right.
And
that's the big deal. I mean, that's the promotion thing is I've learned over time that even if, you can reach out to people about something, and I can reach out to people about something similar, that I may reach a crowd that you may not reach, right? You stay in Bama and I stay in Florida, where I may reach out people that's in Florida that you may not be able to reach that's in Bama. So things like that is important. And it's another thing that I've noticed, and I've kind of thought about it after we had the conversation, and I'm pretty sure you'll probably be like, wow. But you ever realize that anytime we go to like a Foot Locker store or a jersey store, they don't have any like WNBA women's jerseys?
Oh, not even jerseys. Even not even like a WNBA shirt.
Yeah, they don't have no shirts. You don't see any WNBA team jerseys in any store that, sells any kind of sports collectibles. I see more hockey stuff in there, or different things, different smaller sports or different sports in there than I see WNBA. Not even one shirt, not even a keychain. So, these are the things that can, increase the revenue. Like, if 10 people go in the store and one person says, well, I don't want to buy that women's basketball jersey. Maybe 8 of them say they don't want to buy an NBA basketball jersey, but 2 of them do. That's a profit. You're helping. But if there's no jersey in there at all, or no kind of gear, no kind of collectible, then how do you raise the revenue? Like, and to be honest, like I said, I know for me, and I'll do that more often as well, is, retweet, talk about WNBA a little bit more, because, just one retweet, it can see somebody that they didn't pay attention to it at one point. Now they are paying attention to the NBA. They see these stats. Oh, wow, this is what this is. I mean, so it's a couple things. And that's my thing is, if you don't do any research, then you don't know. I mean, many people know everything that LeBron has done, right? But if I give you a stat that says somebody has won 4 championships in their league, and I tell them the name is Sue Bird, a lot of people wouldn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't know. They'd be like, "Oh, well, who the hell is that? Are you talking about LeBron? Are you talking about Jordan?" We have Colin Cowherd, we have all these different shows, Undisputed, and they don't talk about the WNBA as much as we think they should. Because once they do, Sue Bird should get as much credit as LeBron James does. She has 4 WNBA championships, and she's been in the WNBA for 17 seasons. But if you look at the bonus winnings, the bonus winnings profit is what we've seen. You're talking about north of $350 for LeBron and about $10K for Miss Bird. So obviously salary is totally different, looking at north of $30 million for him, and she's just under $300K. So that shows you the difference. But nobody's talking as much. We've been hearing about LeBron all through the bubble, right? We've been talking about LeBron all through the bubble. Everybody's been hearing about him, talking about him getting getting his NBA championship, his 4th one. But not many people have talked about Sue Bird. So I think that is something that has to change. And once that do, the revenue can go up. I mean, that is, I hate to say it, but that's the name of the game. We know that they should be paid equally. We know that. But it's tough to, when you're looking at the kind of money that is there, how can you dish out this money to everyone when the stands are not as full as it is at an NBA game or nowhere near, right? The revenue is 2 totally different levels. The money has to come from somewhere. And we know this. You get to the point to where we start seeing money come out of nowhere, or as we call growing on trees somewhere. Now all these investigations start to go on, and there's some rule that has been broken. So these are the things that, these things happen when we don't promote enough, right? The fan base is not there. And I think that'll fix everything. That'll definitely help.
I think, one thing that we see the WNBA, that the NBA does bankroll the WNBA. There's been reports about that David Stern, while he's commissioner, has bankrolled that league for a very long time. So if you got your big brother bankrolling you, just to keep the lights open, I hate to say it's like the WNBA would fold it a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the shows like Undisputed, First Take, and Colin Cowherd's show. The one of the main issues I have with those shows, and why I like what we do, whereas Lock and Crook Summer Sports Podcast or Fast Break or any other shows here on iSports Sports Radio, we kind of talk about different things here on this network. It's not like on First Take or Undisputed, they'll take one subject and kind of slice that down to 3 different parts throughout the show.
Right.
In which you can talk about that one thing, but kind of move on to other subjects and not staying in the same type of subjects. Because all these shows to stay on is Cowboys, LeBron, Lakers, Patriots, Packers, you know, and wherever else. Like basically NFL, NBA. They don't get no run to college football, which I'm surprised. They don't get a run to hockey. Don't get no run to MLB. And then you get to college hoops and men's and women's basketball. They don't get that no run at all to there. Like look at Gino. What's his last name? Gino Arenama out in UConn. Dude's been winning championships year in, year out.
Back to back to back. Yeah.
For the most part.
Yep.
Even in the last segment and stuff like that, those type of shows don't give him no plug at all.
Nope.
And not just him. I mean, other top partners. They don't like in the last 10 minutes of the program, if they do like a rapid fire type of thing, they don't bring up stuff like, hey, UConn playing Stanford tonight. Who y'all got tonight?
Right.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and we see it all the time. It's like, I don't know if you've noticed, I've watched the different shows before, but they all stick to the similar topic.
Yep.
Right. It's like, if you're on, say, the ESPN, the FS1, they will stick to the same topic throughout their shows on that day or whatever. But I think that it needs to be more so of an expansion throughout. And that's what we do here. And, like I said, me and you, before we even come to every Sunday at 8 o'clock, we've talked throughout the week about something that we see no matter what sport it is. Or no matter what sport, but no matter what event it is. NBA related, WNBA related, college basketball related. We see some news and say, all right, well, we are going to talk about this. And to the point now where, like I said, WNBA has been here since '96. I think that it's going to grow, but it also takes, us as fans to get more fans. Just that simple. This is one of the reasons why a lot of sports like football, and WNBA, well, not WNBA, but the NBA, were trying to get, as many fans as they can back in these stadiums. And NFL is doing that now because that's where the revenue is, right?
Yeah.
That's where the money is coming from. You buy the jerseys, these players sign these different franchises. LeBron and Anthony Davis jersey was probably one of the highest jerseys being bought this past year. Kyrie and them just introduced the new Harlem Globetrotter jerseys to me. But it's the reason why they presented those with him and Kevin Durant and Kyrie. So now they want those jerseys to be bought. Why? Because that increases the revenue that the NBA is going to get. And the WNBA needs something very similar. It just needs to be talked about more, get more exposure, and more money will come, especially for the players.
I think I want to get your thoughts on this before we wrap up. We see in the college, especially the women's side, that it's not a lot of parity that happens. Now you got UConn top, you got Notre Dame, Stanford, and then Mississippi State, South Carolina, but not a lot of parity in college women's basketball. And then when that happens, if you're a casual viewer and stuff like that, it's like, okay, damn, I just see these girls for these 4 years dominating. Now in WNBA, but they're not doing the same success there. It's like a whole new league, and they're not doing as much. It's like, I think like this, D-Log. I think they need to get somebody in that can market these girls when they come out from school and put them in the right situations, and hopefully they can succeed. coaching wise, marketing wise, and maybe get the NBA kind of spend some money in those cities, in Las Vegas, because they got no over sports teams besides the hockey and football team. And then in the summertime, you got the WNBA. You're in Vegas. You gotta find a way to promote that.
Yeah.
Seattle. I'm pretty sure they have great crowds there because that's the only basketball team they have there. I think they'll continue to do well. But these other places, New York, Minnesota, I think when teams, and we talked about this before. If you win, people will show up.
Yep.
If you're winning, people will show up. But let me ask you this before we head out. I know that the WNBA has expanded in years past. I remember years ago they expanded to a whole bunch of teams, which kind of didn't help the league. Should they expand a couple more cities to kind of, spread out a little bit more and trying to, I guess increase revenue that way? Maybe put a team in. God, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Maybe another team in,
like Miami.
Yeah, but they already went that route before and it didn't work out. Maybe it can work again, but I think maybe bringing it back to Houston.
Yeah, gotta have one in Houston. Yeah, for sure.
And then if you bring Brown back to Houston.
But see, the thing about this is, and to answer that question, yes, I think they should expand. But one thing that, when we say expand, I don't think that we should leave it to having only one team in a state. So at some point, these bigger states like California, like Texas, like Florida, as we do in different sports, it's okay to try to have 2 or 3 different teams, maybe 2 teams for right now, and then expand it more over time. But first of all, having 12 teams is not gonna last that long. You need to have more than that, especially with so many different colleges and different women's college basketball teams out there. I feel like 12 teams is making it very limited as far as what talent you're going to see. The more teams you have, the more talent that we can actually see, right? The more talent of players that we can see. Well, damn, okay, there's 2 or 3 good players, in this state with this team. But expanding, I think, should be done. I'm thinking that not only you do that, but try to expand it into these bigger states, because you already have the sports there. Another thing that we see, like I said, a lot is you're not just seeing like Florida. Florida has 2 NBA teams?
Mm-hmm.
So just having one, in Los Angeles or in California is not going to do it, or 2 is not that. I don't think, for as big as California is, you should do that. So, expand, yes. But I don't think it need to be, well, if we're going to expand, we got to go to a state that don't have a team. I don't think they should shoot down the fact that it may be a team in a similar state. That's just something that has worked in different sports. It's working for NBA, it's working for basketball, baseball, it's working for NBA and football. So this is something that you have to try and take a risk on, because, like I said, the thing about it is it's about the fans, right? You need more fans. That's where WNBA is to increase the revenue. Because once you have more fans, you have more teams. Now we're seeing more jerseys in these different areas. Now the ticket prices are rising. So, but you do go to, right now you got Las Vegas Aces. They just got a football team. You got a couple other places, Connecticut Sun. You got, Connecticut Sun. You got different teams, but to have, some in-city teams wouldn't be a bad idea. But it goes with, like I said, it to expand, I think will pay off because now we're seeing all this other talent that is showing up. That's the thing about college basketball that we both know is Steph Curry didn't come from a big time school like that. He came from Davidson. They're pretty good, but they're not a Duke. They're not a North Carolina. Ja Morant came from Norfolk State, right?
Murray State.
Murray State. I'm a little older right there. So Murray State. So the reason why we are hearing about these players is because there's so many teams that they can go to, and scouts are looking for players everywhere because there's so many different scouts instead of just 12 team scouts, right? When you have a lot of teams, you're hearing about all these other different players. So the more teams that you have, you hear about Diane X, Y, and Z. She's pretty solid out of Connecticut State or Jacksonville State, whatever. That's a little bit exposure that they get. The next thing you know, she's on the team. Now she has a career that showed that she messed around and she's not a Hall of Famer now. So if we don't have a lot of teams, it's hard to get a lot of exposure to different players. But when you're sitting at about 12 teams, the league is fairly kind of small. They talk about the draft, and it's like, oh, yeah, we're talking about it a month before. Hey, if you pay attention, well, cool. If not, all right, good. But, to get that national exposure everywhere, even around the country, the more teams you have, what happens now, you got players from different countries coming over playing as well.
And that's a good point, too. The overseas, point. I'll be honest, I don't know. To me, we know more about the young prospects about, men's basketball compared to women's. And maybe that's somewhere that the WNBA's got to reach their talent pool at. Well, like they did in the past. Like I remember, what's that tall lady's name that died years ago? Margot Diek. She was about 7 foot. And I forgot where country she's from, but that was a name that kind of attracted folks, to the WNBA because they want to see this tall lady from wherever, But like you mentioned, you probably look at Doncic. That's a name, you got to bring in. I know they had some names from Australia from the past and currently, but you gotta get those. You gotta scout some more. Hit Greece. See who's the next budding star there. Maybe get her to the mainland in college. Budding star in Spain, England. In Africa, Italy, whatever, Slovenia. You got as a league, you got to do something different.
You got to. You got to have an expansion to see what you can have. And, if you sit at 12 teams, you're going to be stuck at the same similar revenue. What are we talking about? Between 12 and 15 players on the team?
Yeah.
If that. You're probably talking about at the most, maybe 12. So, you're already shorthanded compared to, these other sports. So it's best to have the more teams. And once you do that, I think it'll happen over time. It's just more so of the exposure and gotta have these states and these cities come out and ask them more so about, the WNBA. And also, I think what plays a part too is if NBA players talk about it as well. That'd be very crucial.
And, I think that's why I think the death of Kobe Bryant kind of stings a little bit more because, you had his second child come through the ranks and stuff like that, basketball wise. And, with that Kobe Bryant name and her come up in the ranks, that kind of, you know, that kind of killed that momentum right there. Because God knows, if that unfortunate accident happen, what transpire with her career and the exposure she'll bring. And I know they said she was going to UConn and stuff like that, which that'd been cool and all, that'd been all right and all, but you like to see go to another school and get that shine elsewhere. But losing that, like you mentioned, that NBA ally and future Hall of Famer hurts. That hurts.
Yeah, big time.
But, ladies and gentlemen, this has been our show tonight. Thank you for tuning in with us. We will be on here next week. We'll figure it out, what we're going to talk about. But if you're not already, follow us on Twitter at FastBreak at ISR. That's FastBreak ISR. Please do check out the website at iesports.com. Look to buy some merchandise. If you like our show, please buy some merch. A lot of good things in there. T-shirts, headbands, sweatbands, the whole 9 yards. So please do check that out when you do get a chance after this show. D-Lock, how can people find you on social media?
You guys definitely find me at Black-813. Black word dash 813. Definitely be on YouTube a little bit more now. Devil Rays are playing really good. I call them Devil Rays. That's what I called them when I was younger, even though they are the Tampa Bay Rays now. But talk about them. The Bucks are looking pretty solid. So I definitely be running over a couple of things, but you can find me there on Twitter. Let them know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Spawn4288. That is Spawn4288. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, The Crooks Process. That's my other podcast show that I do besides this show here. So please do look out for that. Like I said, we'll be here next week, talking about, the continuing NBA offseason and whatnot. Also, please do check out the morning brunch here on IE Sports Radio with Seth Eves and Matthew Owens at 10 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 Pacific in the morning, folks out there. So please do check that out. But until then, this has been Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all sports. We'll check out next week. We're out.
Peace.